Okay, that's started again. Quite honestly, at the moment I don't see any difference. See? I've restarted it and within seconds I've got people saying hello. So that scheduled event obviously didn't work. So we won't be doing that again. The problem with the not using the scheduled event is I don't get to choose a what do you call it, thumbnail. Does that really matter? Anyway, so everything I've just done I'm going to do again. Now these hellos, well, hello again in some cases, that possibly means that somebody's tried typing before. These are coming in faster than I can keep up with for a start. So I'll say hi to everybody. That's an easy way out, isn't it? And yeah, it's obviously working now. Things are going mad. Are the Miltoniopsis doing well? We'll have a look at a couple of those in a minute. Because that first bit didn't work, or it didn't work the way, you know, I had some comments, I'm going to look at that Restrepia again, because that was the first plant I was asked about, and it was the one that didn't bloom, the one that hasn't bloomed for absolutely ages, and it's not only bloomed, but what about that then? I've actually got a dub bloom. That's coming out from under the same leaf. But this is the one that objected to being repotted. So it says here the chat was working before. Well, I couldn't see it, and without being able to see it, obviously I can't respond to it. So I think it was worth stopping and starting again. Thanks for that. Chat was working before. Hello again. Yeah, and I can now see the comments. It wouldn't have been a lot of point carrying on if I couldn't see the comments. That would have been daft, really. I'm talking to myself. Anyway, this is the one that objected to being repotted, and as a consequence, a lot of its roots failed, and it's trying to support a really large plant with not a very good root system. It's getting better, but that's the consequences of Restrepias not getting hydrated. You get crinkled leaves, just like some of the Oncidium types. Anyway, the blooms on this are very attractive, which is why I got it in the first place. It's one of the ones I've had the longest. Came from Burnham's, and it's Restrepia antenifera hemsleyanna, which I think is one of the named varieties from Burnham's. In other words, it's one of their own, I think. Right, let's have a look and see what's going on here. Doesn't have any comments. I can't say hello to individuals here, they're going far too fast. Anyway, that reminder thing, well, not as a reminder, it was a scheduled start. It didn't work because it didn't start at the scheduled time, so it didn't do what I was expecting, so I had to start it manually. And then when it started, I had no chat, so I assumed it wasn't working. Obviously it was, but I couldn't see the chat, so no good for me. I have an RLC something or other. It's an RLC. The name of it to me doesn't matter so much as what it is. Very pot bound, roots over the pot, but it's in spike. Can I repot without disturbing the plant or wait? With Cattleya types, the important thing is, are the new roots starting or about to start? In other words, you know your plant well enough. Irrespective of spikes, blooms or anything else, for me, all the Cattleya types, the most important thing is those roots. So that's the determining factor as far as I'm concerned. Not time of year or anything else, it's just, are those new roots starting? And if they are, because a lot of Cattleyas will drop some of their older roots as a natural progression, and disturbing them seems to speed that process up. So if you're about to replace your root system with new ones, it's a good time to repot. And like I say, forget the time of year or anything else, just go for it. Lots of hellos from all sorts of places. Right, when I look at my comments later, I will see that the the things were working. Well, obviously they work, as people have commented, so that's good stuff. Now this is a problem I've got that I may be able to find a solution. Last time I had a live broadcast, people complained that I'm looking away from the camera. The laptop is down there, the camera is there. It would be nice if the laptop was underneath the camera, but I've got nowhere to put it. The alternative would be to put the camera above the laptop. I've got nowhere to put it. So at the moment they're one there and one there, which is a nuisance, and I know it's not as good as it could be. But I'd have to get some sort of tall table on legs, something like a projector stand perhaps, to put in front of the tripod that the camera's on, so that the laptop was here, and that way I'd be looking at the laptop here and the camera here. So it would be more, you know, it would be nicer. The scheduled video, there was already one dislike with only 1.5 minutes in. All I can say is that you're wasting your time, because I don't take any notice of them. So unless you're going to put some words with it and actually say what you think I could improve with, then it's not worth bothering, because I'll take no notice of you. To tell you the truth, I don't take any notice of the likes either. They're not something I look at. It's just, it's a YouTube thing. It doesn't bother me at all. All I'm interested in is the views, the people that stay with the channel, and the comments that come in. You know, whether somebody does that or that, it really doesn't worry me. So you're wasting your time. However, if you're watching and you're not subscribed, that would be nice. I don't go on about subscribing, but yeah, you know, it would be nice. Hugs from Portugal. It's just been watching a bit of the news for lack of, well, to wind some time down basically. And they're on about, the news reader, the lady doing the news, was, because it's coming up to a next set of changes to the COVID rules. And she said having a hug was more important than going on holiday, in the concept of the items on the news list, you know, the things that are important on the news. And she said having a hug was more important than a holiday. Not so sure about that. I think hugs are grossly overrated. How do I heat my greenhouse in winter? Right, I think we're back again. I didn't know, so I was so busy reading the text on the right hand side of the screen, I didn't see that the left hand side had paused. I haven't got any logic as to why that happened. Put it down to gremlins, or the orchid fairies have got nothing else to do apart from fiddle with my kit. Anyway, we're back up and running. Yeah, people just identifying the fact that we had a pause there. I'll keep my eye on the stream health. Let's switch that over to there. Because I've got no idea why that stopped. No idea at all. Anyway, it's back. The only trouble with these breaks is I end up with lots of videos, you know, that are actually YouTube will post instead of being one continuous one. But it's reasonably obvious, you know, what's actually gone on. Someone says the camera fell over. No, it didn't. I actually injured myself. I actually knocked the camera, and as it fell, I grabbed it and twisted my shoulder. It didn't hit the ground. I caught the camera. It's precious. My precious. Right. Another plant that somebody asked about, well, not a plant, it was some plants, was the Renantheras. So I'll dig those down. I've got 3. I did have 4, but one just rotted and I lost it. This one, have I got names on there? Not that I can read. Story Eye, this one. I chose ones that are a little more temperature tolerant. Now this one is not right, because if you look at the colour of the leaves, the implication is it's getting too much light or lower leaves are dying. I mean, I've got these in pots at the moment. By rights, as they become adult plants, they ought to be bare rooted really, and then just watered frequently. So I don't know whether I've got a leaf loss because it's just the lowest leaf and it's dying, or whether it's getting too much light. It's unlikely it's getting too much light, but it's growing. It's put on 2 leaves in the winter and it's started another one, so it's doing okay. The other one is put on the most growth. This is, again, it's got an old, I was going to say it's got an old leaf that's about to fall off. Well, with a bit of help it has fallen off. This one is putting out quite a few new roots at the moment. And these roots are great big thick fleshy ones, as opposed to the ones it's already got, which are wispy ones. But all of these wispy ones have come into growth recently, so they've all got growing tips. This is all new. They were like that, just sort of blind-ended roots, and now they've just started growing. So this one's in growth. It's pushed out 2 leaves in the winter and has got another one started. No sign of any spikes yet, but this one's doing okay. Out of the ones I've got, this is by far the best one. I don't know how big these have to get before they bloom, but I've got them in the best light they can get. They're up with the Vandas. That's the best I can do as far as light's concerned. And the other one, if I can get to it, is the one that's rotted. The whole of the base of the plant rotted. It completely rotted off, and I just managed to save it below the one and only root. And that's what it's got, and it's standing in moss, and I'm hoping that at some point it'll produce another root from the stem. But otherwise I can't do much else than just sort of keep it like that. It's growing. I mean, you know, it's pushed out 2 new leaves and another one starting. So it's growing, but it hasn't got a root system. It has a root. It does actually have a growing tip though. So those are the 3 I've got left. One of which is, I would say, recovering. Doing its best to recover. I'll those back in a minute. Right, let's have another look, see what's going on here. Right. You have all your shade netting up, not too early. let's put it this way. It's May the something or other. It'll tell me down there, won't it? It's May the I can't read that. The 9th. Yeah. On June the 21st, it's the longest day. How much longer do you think I should wait? The shade netting is not just for the strength of the sun, it's for the length of the day. Now, this is the bit that in the UK and other similar latitudes that stresses plants that people don't necessarily appreciate. Virtually all of the plants in here come from the tropics, and in the tropics they get between 11 and 13 hours. That's their maximum and minimum day length. They're not used to 15-hour days. Now our light level is lower than they would get in the tropics, but a 15-hour day is 2 hours longer than their normal maximum, which as a percentage is actually quite a big increase, and it will carry on up to 16. Yeah, when we get to the towards the end of June. So day length is important, and therein is the stress factor. On a sunny day in the UK, when we're on our long days, they're getting to their 13-hour mark where they ought to be starting to shut down, ready for the night, and they have to carry on growing because the light's still there, and it puts them under a form of stress. So we need reasonable shading at that time of year. It's quite important. The only layer of shading I still haven't put up is the second layer on the roof, and at the moment I'm inclined not to, but it'll depend how the weather changes. If we get one of those predicted heat waves, because don't forget light's relative to the weather. I mean, at the moment, it's raining just now, it's a dull day. So I could probably take all of the shade netting off today and the plants would love it. But then halfway through the day the sun comes out. I have to put it all back on again. So, you know, we do what we can, and we have to go on the what we think is going to be the norm. So, where are we now? This year in January here in my city it is super cold. Yeah, I mean, outside temperatures for me don't. All they do is cost me money, quite honestly. The heat wave costs me money, the cold costs me money. A day like today costs me nothing, yeah, because the heater won't be on. I'll have one circulating fan on and everything else will be off. If the sun comes out, yeah, then I'll need the second circulating fan on. So I've now sort of doubled the cost of my air circulation. And if it gets warm in here, the extractor and the inlet fan kick in. That costs more money, yeah? And as soon as it starts getting warm in here, Hurricane Hector fires up. That costs me more money. Now in the winter, overnight, on cold nights, my heater is kicking on and off all night long. And that's a 2 kilowatt heater. So that costs me money, yeah? So, well, it costs YouTube money really, I don't pay. I always look at the YouTube money I get from running the channel is for the kit. It's to keep the place going, buying some plants and getting to shows and stuff like that, so that I don't have to dig in my pocket. That's the theory anyway. Can they get too much light if the leaves stay cool? Yes. But it helps if you can keep the leaves cool. If we get a sunny day here, or a day when it's warm outside as well as a sunny day, I'll have both of these circulating fans on hurricane force. And I'm not kidding you, the plants are actually bending. It's forceful air onto as many of the plants as I can get it. It helps keep the leaves cool, yes, but the light intensity hasn't changed. Really, that's heat. We're talking a different thing here. You can have really, really bright light and freezing cold. If you've ever been skiing, you know what I mean, yeah? So light intensity is a subject that's separate to heating and cooling and airflow and everything like that. Airflow will help cool plants down. That's good, yeah? Some plants actually like it warm, but they all like good airflow. goes without saying. Still air becomes stale air, and the things that cause problems to do with rots and funguses, they like nothing more than to settle on leaves and be left alone to fester. Well, we hate them, don't we? So you give them a blast with air and they don't get a chance to settle. That's quite important. That's part of what airflow is all about. Only +4 in here. That's cold. As if it was +4 in here, I wouldn't be in here. I'd be in there in the warm. Leave the plants in here on their own. I am very good at cold. I mean, when I was working on the cars, I'd be quite happy cleaning a car in my shirt sleeves in -2. I'm actually okay with cold and heat. I just ignore it. But it can eat into you if you get chilled. It can get into your bones. It can actually do you harm. So and I'm on about near zero, not seriously cold like -20 or something stupid. I've never experienced that. The coldest I've ever been was on the top of the ski slope. We left down by the hotels and the sort of civilized areas. We left there at -4. And we were told that when we got up the top there would be a wind chill, and if you hadn't got appropriate kit, don't come up because it'll go through you, with the wind. And when we got up there it was -18. That's the coldest I've ever been. Now, I'm sure people have been colder than that. We're going to get a big list of I've had minus. Well, -18 is the coldest I've been, and I'd rather not do it again. I think the warmest I've ever been is about 35, 36. Now I'm okay in that sort of heat, providing I can get out of the sun and just be in the shade and not have lots to do. So that helps. How long do you soak a Cattleya dehydrated and no roots? It's a difficult subject to just sort of say, but if your Cattleya's got no roots, there's not a lot of point in soaking it, because there's no roots. You're not going to get anything up through the roots because there aren't any. However, you can stop a plant totally dehydrating by keeping it in very moist air. Again, it needs to be clean. I mean, there's a lot of people have said that, if you've got a rootless Cattleya or anything else for that matter, put it in a polythene bag with some sphagnum moss and seal it and just leave it there until it grows roots. Providing that's a reasonably sterile environment, that can work really well. But if it's not a sterile environment, you've just created the perfect environment for mould to grow. So make sure it's clean. What else have we got? Do you have a Cattleya Laelia purpurata which has a new spike coming from a new growth? The purpuratas, Laelia purpurata, well now Cattleya, I'm not having that, it's Laelia. Basically they tend to mature a new growth and grow a sheath, and it's quite a large sheath, but they don't grow any buds for quite a while. They sit there and have a rest at that point. They're one of the ones that rest when the growth matures. Some Cattleyas like a rest after they've bloomed. But that one just sits there and does nothing until the appropriate time of year. Can I get at one? Probably not. I've just said that. Oh yeah, I can get at this one because this one's in a slightly shadier place because it hasn't long been repotted, and I didn't want to put it in the intense light. This is variety striata. I haven't actually had this too long, but this has got it's two plants. I actually split it in two and took a risk, actually, because the rhizome was elongated and had quite a lot. It wouldn't go in the pot, basically, to sum it up. So I cut the rhizome in half, giving me a front bit with a new growth and a back bit with no growth and very few roots, but I took a chance. So the front part of the plant, which is here, has got a growth that's maturing. It hasn't produced a sheath yet. It probably will, but I doubt if it will bloom. That piece of plant has only got 4 growths on it. It has bloomed in the past, and it might do, but it was in bloom when I got it. I haven't bloomed it yet, but having separated it, the back part of the plant also produced a new growth, so I've actually got 2 leads on it. So eventually, hopefully, I can keep the 2 leads going and I will get blooms. It's highly unlikely that's going to bloom on the latest growth, especially as I've moved it out of the bright light. They like highlight. A lot of the Laelias do. I can't get at the other one, it's buried right at the back there. But yeah, Laelia purpurata in particular tends to mature its growth, grows a pretty hefty sheath, almost as big as a blinking leaf. It almost looks like a bifoliate for a bit, and then it'll just sit there for a while, and then eventually you should get some buds, providing it's got the strength and the energy and is blooming size. Just because it's got a sheath doesn't mean it's going to bloom. So that's that. What else have we got in here? Oh, somebody hasn't been as cold as me, but they've been hotter. I would imagine, see, if you're cold, you can wrap up. If you're hot, there's nothing you can do, apart from go in somewhere where it's cool. You know, but if you're in a situation where you're outside and it's 40 degrees, it's 40 degrees. There's nothing you can do. Whereas if you're cold, you can put an extra layer on, or another layer. You like this, bit of humour. I was watching one of the volcano live feeds, and somebody said they were thinking of going camping in Iceland. What was the best thing to wear? And somebody typed in your house. I like that. Camping in Iceland. You've seen how cold it gets there. And severe biting winds across that country. Right, what have we got? I see you wiring your orchids when you repot. Have you ever used rhizome clips? I haven't, but I'll tell you why they wouldn't work at the moment is, where are we? Oh, of course I put, I will have to go back to that one again. When you've got a pot full of bark that's this size, you can't get a clip to go in straight because there'll always be a big piece of bark in the way. So you wiggle it and you gradually get it down there, but it hasn't really got much to bind onto. So I found that they didn't actually hold very well. And, you know, I mean, the reason for wiring these in is just literally the height and weight of the top of the plant. The weight's not in the bottom of the plant, it's all up the top here with these great big thick fleshy leaves. So I like to wire them in, made easy by the fact that I use these holy clay pots. So there's always somewhere to poke the wires in and out. But they just go on there once and they stay there. They stay there until it gets repotted. There's never any reason to take them off again, even if the roots grab hold of the pot. They can just stay there. So, but that's why I use the wire. I've got it. It's bonsai wire, and I've got a lot of that from when I used to wire my bonsai trees. I don't do that so often now. In fact, I don't do it at all. I haven't got the time. But yeah, I like the idea of wiring Cattleyas into large chunky bark in holy clay pots. I also wire plants onto mounts occasionally. I've got one handy that's wired on. I also use fishing line. There's one that's wired. That's one of the ones that came from Jeff's. Totally unknown. It's an Oncidium type. Goodness knows what it is. It didn't have a label. Badly desiccated. And I stuck it on a mount and wired it on. Because 3 turns of wire was easier than faffing around the fishing line at the time. So that wasn't that that's a better job than the fishing line would have done. It was a bother factor. And I couldn't be bothered to faff around with the fishing line, so I just put some wire around. This is actually growing now. We've got new growth here, another nice one here, and there's one coming up the back. So whatever this is, we will find out, because I would suggest that given 3 new growths and the advent of new roots pushing down through into the moss in several places, I would suggest that one of those growths is going to bloom. because the plant will start getting its strength back again. And then we can find out what the hell it is. Some sort of oncidium, I'm sure. What else have we got then? Somebody bought a large oncidium, nice big chunky plant, and when they got to repot it, it was 2. Yeah. Not that that ever happens much. It's a trick. It's a sales trick that is annoying. The only excuse I can offer that is, in some cases it will happen because of the mechanism. From the point that the mericlones in the mass producers come out of the flask, it's virtually an automated process. So the chances of picking up 2 in a pot as opposed to 1 is quite high, sometimes 3. Yeah. So it can happen inadvertently, but it can also happen deliberately because the 2 plants will have a spike each. So it looks like you're buying a mature plant with 2 spikes when you're not. You're buying 2 smaller ones with a spike on each. It's cheating, but it is done. It is done. But it's mainly done where there's manual intervention, where somebody's actually thought about it and thought, yeah, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick 2 in a pot because I can charge so much more for it, you know. So yes, it happens. It can happen with anything. And if you think, not that long ago, I can't remember where the hell I got it from. But anyway, I had a Laelia. I bought it as Laelia Red Velvet, and the other buds that opened were a totally different type of Laelia, just the bog standard type, not the variety that I bought. So I ended up with 2 totally different plants in the same pot. But again, 2 plants, you know, masquerading as one maturer plant. So yeah, it happens. Buyer beware, that's all you can do. You know, how would YouTube back you up? Sorry, not YouTube, eBay. Would eBay back you up if you complained and actually said, I bought this plant and when I got it out of the pot it was 2? How are they going to see that as a complaint? You paid for 1 and got 2. How can that be a problem? We know it is, but you know, they just see that as, you got something for nothing. Why are you moaning? All good stuff. I've got half of mine on mounts. Do you know, I've never looked at the now, if we don't count Derek's tiny little plants that I've got, because there's about 20 of those, they're a recent acquisition to help out somebody, you know, trying to sort out a collection of somebody who's recently died. And I took on some of those as a consequence. They weren't planned, and they've just bumped up my numbers quite dramatically, unintentionally, unplanned. But they're all tiny little plants in tiny little pots, so that they don't take up loads of space. They do take up some of my time. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Coming around here, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. And then this lot up here, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. Heading up towards 60 mounts, which is quite a bit. It's about a third. It's about a third of my plants, I would suggest, something like that. I missed those 2 down there. 2 doesn't make much difference, does it? Yeah, so I have got quite a lot mounted, and it's a relatively recent thing that I've started mounting some oncidium types as well. I mean, I've always had a reasonable smattering of Dendrobiums mounted because they do well. I've even got a bulbophyllum mounted. That's not traditional, to say the least, but it's growing quite nicely on its mount. Little species that should be coming into bloom soon. They're maturing, so I'm just looking at the latest growths. Yeah, I would think, I would like to think that bloom would bloom as a mass blooming this time. It's got 6 new growths maturing, and wouldn't it be wonderful if all 6 bloomed at the same time? Well, it'd be even better. It's only ever bloomed staggered before, and I've only ever had like one going over and one opening. I've never had more than 2 on the go. That's the first time I've ever heard somebody say Dendrobiums don't like me, and you bought a Miltoniopsis. Now, back at the start, probably in the other video, somebody said, how are the Miltoniopsis doing? I'll do what I can. Don't forget, there's a fair few of these are not mine anymore. They've actually been sold. That's one of them. That's a little offshoot, a little tiny division that's growing quite nicely and has a new growth. Carol. What else have we got then? We've got this one. This is Miltoniopsis venus. That's a primary cross. Recent acquisition, that one. It's not really doing anything at the moment apart from not dying, and there is root activity in the pot, which is always good with Miltoniopsis. But, oh no, he just said, that's not doing much at all, is it? No, of course it's not. It's only got a flipping flower spike, hasn't it? They sneak up on you. That's that one. This one is the Miltoniopsis phalaenopsis, and this has got 2 new growths pushing on, and I think it's got some roots growing. It's coming on, relatively recently repotted, and it's in the cocoa husk mainly with some charcoal. Small, chopped up small. This one, I don't know whether this is going to make it. This is the oh god, Rosellii xanthina crossed back with Roeslii. Sorry, I always say that wrong. So it's crossed back with itself. It's got virtually no roots, which I wasn't too happy about because I did pay a bit for it, but it has 2 tiny new growths, which I doubt if you can see, right down at the base. So it's coming into growth. That's the little ones. I can't get all the rest out, as I said, a lot of them have gone. This is just a hybrid, a no ID. I think, yeah, this one's got a spike coming on it as well. This is growing well, and this one does have some root activity going on at long last. As long as I can see something like this going on the Miltoniopsis, I know it's going to make it. Their downfall is root loss. It's the main reason for those keeling over. They're finicky, to say the least. But yeah, I mean, this, it's got a new growth pushing up here, another one next to it there. So this one that's just starting to mature with the flower spike has already got another new growth coming off the bottom of it, and it's got another new growth here. That also has new roots. So that one's doing okay. A lot of the others aren't. I'll leave it at that because I'll be getting into the ones that are not mine, which is showing other people's plants before they go. But yeah, these little species Miltoniopsis are strange because some of them are actually warmer growers than your normal Miltoniopsis hybrids are. So they'll actually tolerate more heat. But they're never going to do really well for me because it's too warm for them. They prefer a day like today, exactly like today. Not bright light, cool temperatures. I mean, it's 20 in here. That's just the job for a daytime temperature for those. The only thing that's missing is the fans are off. But yeah, this sort of temperature, this sort of light, with airflow, they would grow on lovely. And then the sun comes out, ruins it all. Takes a while before you get the hang of watering mounts. That's purely dependent on the volume of the moss, if any. Don't forget you can put some plants on a mount and no moss, just strap the roots on. Most of them like a bit of moss. Some of them, the sort of plants like oncidiums that can be vigorous growers when they're actively growing, they can do with a bit heavy on the moss so that they don't dry out so flipping quick. But they are capable of drying out quick when they're not in growth. You just don't water them as often. You know, you've got to watch this. You've got to watch that watering with the mounts. Mounts that haven't got much moss in reasonably good temperatures ought to be watered every day, reasonably early in the day. That's the time when they will take on board that moisture into the plant, and then if they dry off a bit as the day goes on, it doesn't matter because they've already been hydrated. If you get prolonged hot weather, especially during the longer days, some of them could do with watering twice, even if the second one is only with a sprayer, just to rehydrate them. Things like Tolumnias will benefit from that second spray. A good soak first thing, and then a spray as a top up if it's prolonged heat day after day after day. The odd day doesn't matter. Now if you take here, this morning I got sidetracked doing something. I should have watered my mounts today and I didn't. They will now get done tomorrow. That's the third day. That's 3 days in the growing season where they haven't been watered. They'll get done quite early tomorrow. I haven't seen the sun and it's 20 degrees. They're not going to worry. Yeah. Now if it was 28 degrees in here, whatever, I'd have had to water today. But I very rarely water every day. It's usually every other day, unless we get, like I say, repeated day in, day out of warm weather. Then I'll do them every day. How is my victoria-reginae doing? It's right up the back behind all the other plants. It's one of those that is near the glass, but not in the high light shelf. It's in the slightly lower light shelf, but it's on the top shelf. I might be able to reach over and hook it out without knocking loads of stuff over. Well, I can get it out. Whether I can get it back in or not is another thing. Oof. Now this hasn't been repotted since I got it, simply because Sarah potted it in Burnham's bark. Well, there's no need to repot it. It's doing fine. It's this cane here is the one I've grown. That is virtually the same height as previous canes. So I've grown a full height cane. This cane was already on it when I got it, the one with the leaves. And then there's the 2 leafless canes that again were there when I got it. And it has actually bloomed, much to my surprise. I don't know when it will next bloom now. It could potentially bloom again on these 2 older canes that have already bloomed, because it can repeat bloom on the same cane. Some Dendrobiums won't do that. Once a cane's bloomed, that's your lot. But these will repeat. They will go again. And since I've got it, it's grown quite a lot of roots, including quite a few at the bottom of the pot. There's quite a lot of active roots growing in here. They have a lovely orangey tip on them, on the roots on this, rather than the sort of green or purpley colour that you often get. So I've got a reasonable root system in the pot now. I'm quite pleased with that. And you know, the latest cane is getting up to full size now. These actually carry on swelling. So once it gets, I mean, it hasn't finished growing yet. It's not got a terminal leaf yet. It's still got another new leaf coming. So it's going to get longer than that. So I don't know when that cane will stop growing. And as I say, relatively, it's a new plant. But I was pleased to get some blooms on it. I've sort of dreamt over the years of getting those blooms in this grow room, and finally got them. It took a bit of badgering as well, because Sarah doesn't like splitting up her specimen plants unplanned, like, because somebody keeps on, on and on and on and on and on until eventually we actually got it done, which I was very pleased about. And when she said, I'm going to have to charge you so-and-so for that, I said, I don't care what you charge me. Price is irrelevant. I want one. So we've done that now. where are we going? Still don't have any Tulumnia. Well, you've got, like, people in the UK have now got a problem with the Tulumnias because there's quite a few nurseries in the EU that have got lots, and lots of different sorts, loads of hybrids, all different colours and smashing. If you're in the UK, you can't get at them now. So we've lost that market. I don't know. Longer term, I think something might get sorted, but initially they're still trying to get stuff working. And until it settles down and everything's running smoothly, they're not going to think about making changes, that's for sure. And at the moment, because the EU got a bit pissed because we left and didn't want us to, they're being a bit anti and a bit digging their heels in and not being very cooperative at the moment. You know, spoilt kids springs to mind. But I suspect our lot are being just as awkward. They are a load of big kids, aren't they? They all need their heads banged together. Right, where are we now then? For the right price, I would be willing to smuggle orchids to the UK. Quite honestly, it wouldn't be that difficult. It'd have to be a boat. It's certainly not worth risking customs at airports. But there again, you know, you could hire a light aircraft, bring it into one of the grass airfields. Who the hell's going to check what's on that plane? Nobody. It'd be just your luck the one time they check the plane. But I would suggest the cost of chartering a light aircraft full of orchids would be rather prohibitive. So that ain't going to work. But, you know, if you knew somebody who went to France regular as clockwork, known to come and go at regular ports, nobody takes any of this, oh, it's so-and-so again. Have a good trip, did you? All that sort of stuff, yeah? That sort of stuff I'm sure goes on. You could sneak some in, but you've got to get them. You've got to get them to the port, get them on the boat without anybody seeing you. And it's a serious offence, you know, so we're stuck with it. We're stuck with it as it is. Alaska doesn't have much of any kind of market, no. I mean, there are parts of the world where you just have got a hell of a job to get orchids, and you know, it might be worth thinking that they're not perhaps the best of ideas. Depending on, you know, if you've got real difficulty getting hold of the plants that are your hobby, perhaps a different type of plant might be a good idea. I mean, up until Brexit, I had access to orchids, you know, easily, no hassles, but not so now, certainly not so now. I tried to bring in a beef stick into Australia. It felt like a criminal. Oh, that's exactly Australia. My mum, sister and brother-in-law, and my other sister and brother-in-law went out to Australia for my sister's son's wedding. Not something I was interested in, because I don't know him that well, quite honestly. But anyway, when they got to customs, my mum, who wasn't as old as she is, I mean, she's 90-something now, this was quite a long time ago, what, 20-odd years or something, got to customs. Have you got any foodstuffs? No, only some chocolate. The lady just looked at her and said, I'll ask you again, have you got any foodstuffs? No, I've just got some chocolate. Sometimes my mum is so dim. She didn't see chocolate as food. But I mean, you know, Australia is really strict on anything organic, really, even stuff made out of wood, you know. I mean, it's getting to the point now as well with the CITES that you've got to go steady what you make a guitar out of, depending on what country you're in, because you might not be able to export it, depending on what woods you've used. You know, things like mahogany and stuff like that are getting very iffy, and black ebony, and, you know, it's all very well making a beautiful guitar worth 3,000 quid, but if you can't get it out of your little country into where somebody wants to pay 3,000 quid, it's not a lot of good. So, yeah. Where are we then? I'm going to have I promise that once YouTube gets this loaded, I will go through the comments and deal with them, because there's going to be questions that I haven't even seen. There's bound to be. And who knows, in amongst those questions that I've I haven't ignored them, I just haven't seen them. They've whizzed off the top before I've got a chance to see them. There may be some good subject matter for some videos there. I'll actually put the answers in a video over the next few days. I live in Holland, and plenty of boats, and they only ever check for drugs. I thought they were legal in Holland. What's the point in checking for them? Yeah, I must admit I would want a pretty substantial and sturdy boat to come across the North Sea. But then I don't swim and me and water don't get on. So getting me on a boat takes a bit of doing. I'd rather be up there. I'd rather fly over the water. Any day. We were guessing how many orchids you have. Prior to the Derek's influx, which, as I said, was sort of imposed on me, I suppose, but I could have said no, but I didn't. That brought in an extra 20, minus the ones that are on their way out of the door recently, plus a few that I bought in myself anyway, like trip to Burnham's. I think I'm at about 180 now, something like that. So once those have gone, you could say that is 160 plus the ones I took in from Derek's. My goal with the orchids to go, and some got dumped, was to get down to 150. Well, I've blown that, but then I usually do. Each year I cut down, say I'm not getting any more, and then I just blow it, basically. I'm sure many others do the same. The orchid fairies pop them in our trolley as we leave the supermarket or the garden centre. You get to pay and you look at your other half and say, I don't know how that got there. We've all done that. Right. What was the worst oops moment where you knocked something over or broke a spike? I don't know, I've broken, over the years I've broken many spikes, but they are rare events. One that annoyed me a lot, because I still don't know how I did it, was my my big Dendrobium. Oh, come on, brain. It's not speciosum, it's the other one. Anyway, that had a nice spike, and I just filmed it. I think it was on the Sunday chat. I said, look at this lovely spike. And basically, I put it down on the floor, and when I picked the plant up, the spike was still on the floor. And I still don't know, I don't remember knocking it, I didn't bang it with anything. Luckily, it pushed another one out, so we did actually have the blooms on that for some time. So, other spikes I don't know. I can't think of a spike that was like a one-off, the first spike I'd ever had that was precious, that I actually knocked off. But it happens, you know, it's just, it happens, and all I can say is that don't mess with your orchids when you're tired. And don't mess with your orchids first thing in the morning when you think you're awake and you're probably not, unless you absolutely have to. I mean, I won't even come out here until I've had at least 3 coffees and sorted out all my computer stuff, and you know, and basically got myself up and about. But yeah, we all knock a spike off now and again. Quite honestly, something like my winter resting Dendrobiums, the long cane Dendrobiums, you can't really knock a spike off of those because they have many spikes over the length of the cane. What would be a lot worse would be knocking off the only new growth, so that you've lost that year's growth, so you won't get any blooms the following year because you've got no new cane. That would be more of a disaster than knocking some of the blooms off. But I've knocked roots off, especially when repotting, and I've knocked new growths off of Cattleyas. And a lot of the time it's where you've got hold of the plant and you're doing something like snipping some roots, and you've forgotten that the new growth is round that side, and you just sort of turn the plant in your hand and catch it on your finger, and those new growths just click off as easy as anything on the Cattleya types. So yes, I've done that, and I've got annoyed about that. In some cases I'd repotted it deliberately because the new growth and the new roots had just started, and then I've promptly broken the new growth off. Okay, I still get the roots, but I've lost that potential for blooming. We all do it. Um, Yeah, that is something else too. I've got a little bit of a thing about taking the sheaths off of the base of the pseudobulbs and canes and things, because scale get in there and hide. And it's also a place where water can collect. I mean, I actually had a Miltonia, this one up here. I've had these where you've got, on the growth, you get the green coming out the top, and you get these two orangey coloured bracts at the base of the growth that are quite tight. They're quite difficult to get off, but they hold water. Water will actually get down inside there and sit, and if it does that in the winter with the cold nights, that can rot the base of the pseudobulb, literally right at the base. And these are difficult to get off. If you try and peel them off, you end up damaging the bit underneath because they're so tight. But they will hold water, and when I water that, I make sure I don't get the base of the pseudobulbs wet. You know, I water around it so that I don't get them wet. And in other things, you can absolutely drown them and they don't care. But oh, this was asked about a long time ago and I forgot. This is precious to me because I won't ever be able to get it again, and it's only just hanging in there by the skin of its teeth. It's Oncidium varicosum rogersii variety balding. I'll never get that again. But its last new growth completely aborted, and I thought that's the end of this plant, I'm going to lose it now, but it's trying again. It's got another new growth coming, and under that new growth are a couple of new roots. But it's got so little strength now, it's only got one bulb left, but it has got leaves, so it has hope. But that was a good plant once, it just went down. It happens, unfortunately. Stuff like that just happens. Where are we? Dark chocolate is my medicine. If you're going to have dark chocolate, have the good stuff, the 80+% cocoa, whatever. Proper stuff. Put hairs on your chest. I haven't got a sweet tooth. I enjoy that sort of thing sometimes, but I don't do it often. In the house at the moment, there is no cake, no biscuits, no sweets, no chocolate. There isn't any. And I've got a home shop coming on Wednesday, and there isn't any in there either. Every now and again, I might add a bar of dark chocolate in as a treat. But I don't tend to have the sweet stuff in the house. I'm more savoury. You know, I mean, I've got cashew nuts, almonds, walnuts. I like nuts, real nuts, if you know what I mean, not salted and coated and this, that and the other, just the raw nuts. I like them like that. Those tend to be my evening snack. You know, I'll have a little dish with some nuts in and sit and pick at those while I'm falling asleep in front of the telly. Right, nice to hear the rain. Zaina, I did answer your email. I know it took me ages. The lovely Zaina has invited me to go to Italy. I don't know whether this can happen. It's difficult for me to get away from here, cats and orchids, but I'm thinking about it. And that's as much as I can do at the moment, is think about it. That's the best I can do. It's next year anyway. I mean, there's certainly no abroad type travel going on at the moment, and perhaps for a long weekend I might be able to sort something out, but it would have to be thought through. You know, I can't just up and leave. That's the downside of having this lot out here, and nobody around that could attempt to even look after them, apart from my daughter. And you know, she's got to take time off work and everything to come down here to do that, and then she's in another house on her own, sort of thing, and her cats have to stay up there on their own, so it all gets a bit not so easy. Italy is great to just go. Do you know, my youngest sister spent a month, really long holiday, touring around Italy, and her and her husband, my brother-in-law, they've come from a farming background consistently. He still works in that sort of community. He goes around analysing farmers' fields to find out what they might need to add to the soil, what would be best to grow in it, and all that sort of stuff. So he's still quite heavily involved in that sort of thing. And when they came back, she said, that's the only country I've ever visited where you can drive a whole day and not see an animal. It worried them. So there's no animals, there's no sheep, there's no cattle, not even a horse. We saw no animals for a whole day of a driving holiday, and it worried them that there was no livestock. Perhaps they were just in a place where they don't keep livestock. I don't know, but yeah, it worried them. I mean, you can go to Spain. There's livestock everywhere. Everywhere you go to tread, there's a bleeding cat, and scabby old manky ones with one eye, with bent tail and all that sort of stuff. Never seen so many stray, uncared for cats as when I was out in Spain last time. Again, perhaps it was just where I was. I don't know. Where are we then? My garden is full of orchids. It's a nightmare to cut now. Yeah, I know some people that have got a lot of our native orchids growing in their gardens. Those that can grow in the borders, they're actually okay. But there are some that need that grass to grow in, so they grow them in their lawn. And obviously they have to go incredibly careful at when they mow the grass. But it's still possible to do it. I haven't got any grass in this garden anywhere. And I'll say it again, this is not my house, so I don't pay much attention to it. I just live in it and use it, if you see what I mean. That's how it is. What's the difference between the two? I don't know what the question goes with. Don't worry, my neighbour has 2 donkeys. That's a nice noise, isn't it? A donkey noise. That's really pleasant, that is. That's as bad as that wonky cockerel over there. That's not a noise I like. Right, well, as a live broadcast, we had a break. Sorry about that. I still don't know why. This stream health has stayed solid. It's green light and excellent. All the way through this broadcast, it's been like that. I've had me corner of my eye on it. And so why we got a break, I really don't know. But we did. That's life. That's kit. That's tech. It doesn't always work for you. But it's now gone 5:15, and we originally started at 4 o'clock. That's an hour and a quarter's worth of video that YouTube have got to try and sort out. It probably won't get this actually stuck up as a regular video for about 4 hours. I expect it'll take ages. But I'm going to sort of cut it off now. All I can say is thanks to everybody, even though I don't know most of you, because I haven't seen the comments go. They flashed up there so flipping fast that people have gone off the top of the screen before I could even read it. Plus, in addition to that, it's actually quite small. Next time I do one of these, I might change it. You can take the live chat and pop it out into a separate box and then make it bigger so that the font's actually bigger. The trouble is, if it's bigger, there's not so much on the screen, and technically it's going to go off the top quicker, isn't it? Catch-22, win some, lose some. But, that does happen. This is just somebody saying, in the middle of a supermarket, they suddenly found some more unusual orchids. That happens. It's just the purchasing manager has been looking at some pretty pictures, or online probably, scanning through some pretty pictures from their normal supplier and thought, oh, they're quite nice. Perhaps we'll have some of them this time and try them. They haven't got a clue what they're getting, but it does happen. You do get oddities. Anyway, thanks for joining in. I'm sure quite a few of you have had a nice chat amongst yourselves. That's part of what this is all about. I've popped up a few plants. We've wandered off the subject of orchids a little bit now and again. And yeah, why we had that break, I don't know. It's annoying me because there's no reason why that should have hiccuped like that, but it did. Nonetheless, it was restarted again pretty promptly, so it's not the end of the world, is it? Because I presume if you were watching it, that video would just sort of stop and then another one pops up over the top, I presume. Anyway, I need some food, and yeah, I need some food. Things are going to change. May the 17th, our COVID rules change, and it looks like they're actually going to open up, because at the moment they have no reason not to. We're not getting increases in cases. Our death rate's gone right down to single figures most days, and given that's over the whole country, yeah. So I don't think they've got any excuse now to open up a bit. So you know, the things like the restaurants and the pubs, which is a lot of people revolve their whole social life around those types of places, eating out with friends, popping out for a drink and socialise, so it's quite important to them. That doesn't make a lot of difference to me, but what will open up hopefully is the venues will become available for the shows again. That's, you know, and perhaps our Orchid Society meetings can look into doing something. But yeah, it's middle of the year onwards, really. From July onwards, things should start changing, but it remains to be seen. But I'm getting fed up with getting shut in. Actually, it's I won't say it's getting to me, but some days are just tedious because I'm just sort of sitting there thinking, what am I going to do today? I haven't got any watering to do. What am I going to do? You know, and you just sit there thinking, I'm wasting daylight, as they say, because I'm up and I'm not doing anything, you know. So hopefully it will get better, and I will see you all next time. And yeah, a good comment from me to you and from you to everybody on there. Stay safe. It's not over yet. It never will be. This will never be gone. So there's always an air of caution required. I mean, I've had both of my jabs and forgotten about them. I might need a booster jab in the autumn, a top up. But at the moment, I feel relatively comfortable leaving the house. However, I wouldn't feel comfortable walking in a crowded building. In fact, I wouldn't do it, not even with a mask on, because I don't need to. So I've still got an air of caution, and I probably always will have. Every time I'm about to walk in somewhere, I'll look ahead and think, that's a bit busy in there, isn't it? Do I really need to go in there now, or can I come back when it's quieter? That may go on forever. I don't know. But it's going to be like the flu. It will never be gone. It will always be lurking. And like all of these types of things, it'll have the weak. It'll have those that are more susceptible for whatever reason. And sometimes there's no reason. You see, some people just go down and you sort of think, oh, that guy goes jogging every flipping day. He's as fit as a butcher's dog, and it's knocked him for 6. So there's no rhyme or reason. So take care, be sensible, don't be daft. And yeah, and if we all do that, then we can relatively safely say, see you next time. Bye for now, and thanks for joining.